Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Anish Chopra, former Chief Technology Officer for the United States, and Richard Fowler with The Richard Fowler Show.
Generation Progress, how are you guys doing?
Hello!
Come on! How's everybody?
All right.
I thought it was the end of the day, so I thought we'd give you a little bit of hype and pep in your step, make you excited to be here.
That's right.
Powered up, fired up, and ready to go. That's what they say on the campaign trail.
That's right.
Well, I get the privilege of introducing this guy who is a friend and a former candidate for lieutenant governor in the great Commonwealth of Virginia.
Anyone here from Virginia?
Where's the
Virginians in
Virginia
the
at?
house?
Where's Virginia?
All right.
And beyond that, he also served as the first ever chief technology officer for the White House. So he worked for the president, and we're going to have a conversation about how technology and government and how does technology drive movements. So we spend a lot of time here talking about how we knock on doors, how we communicate peer-to-peer. But the question is now how do we use technology to push movements forward, right? And I think, and Anish, we talked about this before, so we did some prep for you guys. Like, we actually put work into this. When you think of technology and movements, Anish, what do you think of?
Well, listen, what I think is a force multiplier, okay? When you heard David speak about the Affordable Care Act, one of the big insights that we learned, not just in the political context, but in governing, was that if we can bring information to people, don't make people go find information, we can have a transformative effect. There's a startup the president highlighted about a week and a half ago when he talked about smarter government. It was a startup in anyone here from Colorado?
Colorado.
A company called...
We have one person.
One person. A company called iTriage. And their whole purpose in life is to convince folks if you don't have to go to the emergency room, seek care in what essentially is a lower cost but more appropriate setting, a clinic. Well, at the Department of Health and Human Services, we have a list of every hospital and clinic that gets free or reduced discounts and opportunities, but you have to visit hhs.gov to find it. I assume if I raised your hand, none of you have ever visited this site.
Hey, this is a room of nerds. They
might have done it. But what iTriage did is they took that same list, put it into their tool. So now when you actually figure out you don't need to go to the ER, it pre-populates the most convenient locations that are free or reduced cost clinics. And in the first year alone, they connected 100,000 people to these clinics at no cost to the taxpayer. And in terms of force multiplier, there's no limit to whether there's one iTriage or 500 or 5,000. And if we do more of this, we can connect people in your communities, in our communities, to the services that they need and the opportunities for them to connect and mobilize to change our country for the better. That's happening right now.
I love that, and I think you're right. Government can be so much more powerful if they use technology. But I think even beyond that, what we saw over the past 2 weeks with the George Zimmerman decision is the fact that it was the Twitter that moved this conversation. I shouldn't have said the Twitter. I know people, I meant Twitter. It's Twitter that moved this conversation and technology that really drove the movement. And I think the power that technology has to drive movements, especially when you talk about gun control and LGBT equality and a woman's right to choose, those are all, in the past month, we've seen all of those being driven by technology.
Well, listen, how many of you have participated in the We the People petitioning process at the White House? Have any of you? My man Macon?
Ow!
I think one of the points is that once you get mobilized and you get people excited about something, they want to go do something. They want to activate. They want to make change real. So now we have the capacity to petition our government and to say we want an answer on the challenges that we face. You mentioned the Zimmerman decision. There's an active petition with over 25,000 signatures basically asking for a thoughtful review from justice as to whether or not other actions can be taken. And without taking a point of view on the issue, now we have that connection point, that valve. And what we're starting to see is the challenge and the opportunity of bringing all those voices together when regular Washington isn't aware. Were any of you active or organized in the online piracy debate, SOPA, PIPA, a couple years ago? Do y'all remember that? I was in the White House, and every single day you listen to all the insiders and the lobbyists and everybody that was in this town, and they thought they had this thing all figured out. But with the power of all of you and communities all across the country, a tidal wave of public participation took over, and it was so exciting to be able to help write that. The president issued a pretty powerful statement about what he wants to see happen, and that was compelled because the American people asked for it. You'll see in this town, there's some lingo. One of them is that the Congress asked the president for his official position on things. It's called a statement of administration position. What we learned in the SOPA PIPA debate is that the American people demanded their own statement of administration position, and that led to change. So I want to say thank you for your participation. These are the opportunities that are available to us right now.
I think and I'm glad you brought that up, because I think the fact that people are now part of the process in government, it changes how government does things, right? Like, you think about what happened a couple weeks ago in Texas, and how those state senators and lieutenant governor literally tried to lie when 180,000 people were watching them on YouTube. And so I think the power of technology to move our movement forward is beyond belief. And I think beyond that, I think you're seeing, and I want to get your take on this, you're seeing the technology community sort of rise to the occasion and sort of be the support that we need to continue to move the movement forward.
Well, every one of you in here today has a mission that drives you. It's what got you motivated to make a difference in our society. What I'm hoping that you'll get out of this conversation is that now there are new allies that are coming to the table to help you bring about that change. And that is the whole capacity of our nation's technology and innovation ecosystem. One of the first things that we recall when the president made a statement that he wants our returning service members from Iraq and Afghanistan to connect to jobs in America, one of the first things the president had done is called on companies to step up. So we saw LinkedIn launch an initiative called LinkedIn for Good, just to help veterans take their military resumes, which are very complicated and very unique to the military, help them translate that into the civilian economy, and then match up to employers who've actively said they want to bring those folks on board. In one weekend, LinkedIn's community built 44 apps that are now widely deployed and available for our service members to come home and connect to job opportunities. You can help connect the capacity of our tech and innovation ecosystem to the problems you want solved in your neighborhood. And we're seeing it happen mostly on college campuses. I was in Virginia, down at Virginia Tech. They created the Hokie Health Codeathon, where over a weekend, a bunch of entrepreneurs and innovators came together to say, how can we in southwestern Virginia connect to better health resources so people can live longer and healthier lives? Not just to be aware of the Affordable Care Act, but to bring it, to make it real for them. And that's happening again on college campus after college campus throughout the country.
I love it. And I think the power, and the truth of the matter is that the power of the movement is at the college level and the young professional level. And the fact that what technology allows you to do, like you're saying, is connecting universities to universities. You could connect from UVA to Virginia Tech. You could connect the movement that way. You could take that movement to the University of Kentucky. Is anybody University of Kentucky people here? I knew there was one. And so I think that it really speaks volumes to not only what the government is doing, but I think the government is sort of urged by the people. And when you brought that up about, talking about what the president's already doing, the president is one of the few presidents that actually participated in a Google Hangout, which is pretty cool, right?
It is, but here's the point. About maybe 6 weeks ago, 11,000 Americans participated in what was called the National Civic Hackathon, or the Code of Action. And what that meant was people in communities all over this country gathered for the sole purpose of saying, I'm not just going to be advocating for change, I'm actually going to be building part of that change. And that's starting to happen. Part of what excites me about the chance to communicate with many of you in this room is some of you are asking yourselves, I'm one voice who aggregates up, will be thousands of voices, and we're going to make things happen, door knocking and all the rest to make change happen. But you're also someone with the capacity to come up with an idea that's going to solve a big problem. And now, more than ever, you can participate. Anyone here have seen the site challenge.gov? A couple of you? I strongly encourage you to visit. Every single day, our federal government is posting problems that they would love to have someone solve. My personal favorite, this Air Force Research Lab said, we want to find a way to stop an uncooperative vehicle at one of our checkpoints. So imagine like a car pulls up to a security checkpoint and guns it and wants to kind of break through the checkpoint. how can the Air Force security personnel stop the car and not harm the driver? Okay, interesting problem. A 63-year-old retired Peruvian engineer saw the problem, and I think it was like a $15,000 prize. In a couple months, he designed a Roomba that could go 0 to 100 miles per hour in 3 seconds, put one of those bags, airbags on the top, so the security officer literally, like a remote control joystick, drives the Roomba under the car, pushes the button like the Mach 5, if you remember Speed Racer, and lifts the car off the ground, rendering it inoperable. That is random, but that's what the retired Peruvian engineer came up with. You all have ideas like this in your community to solve problems, big and small, and that's what this is all about.
So Anish, how do people get connected? And I think that's the thing. So I think we have the brightest minds in the country sitting in this room today, and some of the best political minds in the room today. How do they get connected to government, and how do they become part of the solution, and instead of just talking about the problem? Because I think we spend a lot of time talking about the problem, and we're not thinking about how we can be the solution.
So I think of life in threes. Okay, first and most obvious, stay connected to be aware and be your own node on your little community to get the information out. Part of what's exciting about challenge.gov or data.gov or all these new tools the president's put forward is that you can very easily gather the list of opportunities and propagate them out to your networks. So that's number one. Just be a node to share this information so folks can participate. Two, you might want to actually dedicate some of your time. Maybe it's a summer internship. Maybe you want to make it 1 or 2 years of your lives. What you can do there is actually join the movement. Find those communities that are looking to find problem solvers who understand technology and innovation to make a difference in their communities. And there's a whole group of folks that are there to help you connect. Code for America in cities, a whole range of folks. But third, and I mean this with all sincerity, President Obama ran to make government cool again, and he has. We have recruited some of the best and brightest minds throughout this country. Please join the administration. As you go forward in your lives, think about public service as a wonderful opportunity for you to give back and dedicate your heart and soul to it. It'll be the best thing you sign up for, because the line to get into the government now is getting longer and longer as folks realize, I can actually make a difference. I can walk into that door and come up with an idea and have within 90 days or 6 months a little prototype of something that's going to make a difference. And I would look at all three of those options. We'd love to get your participation.
So you were like the coolest person at the White House,
No,
right?
I was not. Not even, I was a nerd. I'm proud to be part of the nerd brigade. But no, David Seamus is quite the cool guy. He was the guy in the White House.
I love it, and I think you're so right. Like, beyond the fact that we can all serve our government and all be part of the government, I think even beyond that, as those of us that are the activists and the organizers and all of us out here, we could even take a broader role in how we choose to use technology to communicate with our peers, as well as communicate with our elected officials.
Well, there's no reason why you can't. By the way, if there's one thing I would like to point out with the George Zimmerman trial and with Wendy Davis, a lot of the action, of course, is in Washington, and you're gathered here. But please don't forget the states and local governments.
Thank you.
The states and local governments are where a lot of these challenges happen, and your voice is amplified by a factor of 10 or 100. You organize one group of 25 of your friends to spend a weekend knocking on doors, you'll get the attention of a local official like that. You know, it may take a lot more to get the attention of your member of Congress, but the states are where a lot of these insidious laws that are holding us back, that are taking us to the dark ages, that's where that action's happening. And by the way, there are plenty of folks across the political spectrum who've seen that this is an opportunity for them, and they're actually mobilizing in that regard. So organizing at the state and local level can be one of the most important things you do, and your one voice could be the power of 100. In my own race, when I ran for lieutenant governor, 3% of Virginia's population voted in my primary, 3%. So you can think about one vote and the power that vote represented if you extrapolated. So that's where I would suggest take an active role, see change, but be a part of it in those communities.
I think that's such a great point, Anish. You think about the 2010 election. So 2008, there was a 60% drop-off in young people when we got to the 2010 election. So, and we are the only people that can spur our generation to action. Our parents aren't going to do it. Our elected officials aren't going to do it. Only we can do that. And I think beyond, knocking on doors, you have the power to organize on the internet, which is, and technology to get 5 friends to retweet something.
Well, listen, sometimes you blend the two. You know, one of the most exciting things we tried to deploy even in my own campaign, so when we would knock on doors, we'd ask them to whip out their cell phone if they believed in what we were saying, and on the spot we said, please text me at this number, write the word vote, and your zip code. And that action alone opted into a text message program that allowed me to remind them to vote as the process went forward. So it's the same door knocking you all might be aware of, but it was added with a little bit of a twist to get a little bit more connectivity. And the same is true as you think about organizing online and leveraging online channels to connect to people. Some of the funnier tools that were out there, we've done a lot of thunderclapping. Have you ever participated in a thunderclap? And Tom Perriello was walking around here somewhere. During the re-elect, we thunderclapped to get 1,200 young people to connect to the Commit to Vote tools during the re-election process just in Virginia, just by getting folks to participate. So you all know these tools. You know them better than the candidates and the causes that you might work for. Please use this as an opportunity to be the CEO of the application of cool new tools in the mission of the organizations you come from.
And I think, I'm glad you brought that up, and that's not something I plan to talk about, but I think it's something that we definitely have to have a conversation about, especially in the progressive movement. From time to time, some of us, when we work on a campaign, you're just an organizer and you just have this small turf and you really don't feel as though you can make big impact because you're not talking to the campaign manager, you're not talking to the candidate. But I think, what I've learned, and I want to get your take on it, is the whole idea that sometimes in this movement, there's sometimes where you wait in line, there's other times where you cut the line and you break down the window and you get your voice heard.
Well, I will just say this. We're at a moment in time where the causes and candidates you all support are observing how we communicate with each other. They don't understand this world of you're texting 24/7 and none of you pick up the phone and call anybody anymore, and we all are engaging in new and creative ways. You know this better than the people that run the organizations you're affiliated with. Don't be shy. I mean that with all sincerity. Look, my college intern, when I was Secretary of Technology in the Commonwealth of Virginia, my job before coming to the White House, my just recently graduated intern came into my office and had this idea about training young folks to refurbish old computers and getting them a chance to earn skills to connect them to jobs. Because he understood the power of technology, we were able to not only just have him say what he was interested in, but got him in front of the agency head who was responsible for it, and 90 days later had the governor of Virginia, Tim Kaine, put up an idea saying, who wants to partner to bring this intern's idea to life? So you can do it. And I followed that up in the White House. We had an intern do the same thing when the president wanted to create this veterans program, and I mentioned the LinkedIn apps. This intern wrote the job posting schema that's now available on schema.org. Now, that's a bit nerdy, and I'm getting into the technical weeds. But you don't have to just say, hey, I'm an intern, I'm a this. Maybe in 15 years I can be in a position to make a difference. You can do so now, especially if you take advantage of the tools that are out there to communicate and put them to work against the mission of your organization.
I love it. I think you're so right. And I think the moral here at the end of the day, and I think we could both agree on this, I think we've both broken down some doors and cut some lines and went through some windows when we should have went through the door. When the door is closed in life, and I think Anish will agree with me, the trick is to find the window that's open and jump in there, because you'll still be in the room at the end of the day.
I love it. I love it.
Anyway, that's our time. We appreciate you guys.
Thank you guys so very much.
You guys rock. Generation Progress. Make progress. Make it happen.